Jared, never more in my life have I ever been more upset to win money than last night, betting the Edmonton Oilers because after Dallas went down 3-1, I came on these airwaves yesterday and I said, you know what? This puppy is done. This game is over. The series is over. Dallas is not going to come back because they just don't seem to have it. Apparently, they're afraid to shoot the puck. I don't know what in the world was going on with the Dallas Stars last night and throughout the series, but a very, very disappointing and discouraging performance from the Stars. And kudos to Edmonton. Like, gotta tip the cap because I don't want to just be all negative Stars. Also have to praise Edmonton, a team that I've been trying to fade all throughout these playoffs. Has not worked in my favor. Bet LA, bet Vegas, bet Dallas. And here I am, just poor after fading the Edmonton Oilers throughout these playoffs. But Edmonton, they get it done. McDavid's a stud. Dreisaitl's awesome, obviously. Stuart Skinner, like that's been the real story for the Oilers in this postseason, especially in this series, in the last couple of series, find you. Like Skinner has been awesome. He's been really, really good in between the pipes. Like that dude's been dialed in. And if he's going to be dialed in, I think they actually have a legit shot to challenge the Florida Panthers, who they took the 7 games last year. Why can't they do that once again? And this time, Edmonton has home ice. Like, I would lean towards Florida. I bet Florida win the Stanley Cup a couple of days ago. But, man, like, this is going to be a really, really fun, good series. But before we get into all of that, thoughts from Game 5 last night to where every time it felt like Dallas was right back in it, Edmonton scored another goal to just kind of keep them at arm's distance as the Oilers kind of just go ahead and go about their business and dispatch of the Dallas Stars in 5.
Mark of a great team is the ability to bounce back and to counterpunch. I mean, I think when you look at how the series went down last year between Florida and Edmonton, sure, sign me up for another 7 games of that. I mean, that was a fantastic series. Florida went up 3-0. Series was over. Done, dusted, forget it. Then all of a sudden it's 3-3 back on home ice in Sunrise. Good old Sunrise, Florida. That's where the old Stanley Cup was awarded last year. Yeah, I mean, listen, the last 2 Stanley Cups have been awarded in Sunrise, Florida and Las Vegas, Nevada. You know, just normal hockey towns. But I think if you eliminate the hot weather bias against the Florida Panthers, I think Edmonton is very much in a good position in this series. There is a certain vibe. And if you go back and you look at series past, right? Vegas beats Florida. Now, that wasn't a very long series. That was a shorter series. Florida was very banged up in that Stanley Cup final from 2 years ago. But Florida had to watch the Golden Knights hoist the cup. And what did they do the next year? They made it all the way back to the final, almost blew the lead, but then in the deciding game won. And now you're kind of seeing the script flip this year. Edmonton was on the losing end of that last year. Now this year, they've, I would say, run through the playoffs pretty easily. I mean, again, winning on the road in Game 6, dominating Dallas, dominating Vegas. I think Edmonton is in a position because hockey, of all the sports, I think is the grittiest. And when you make it to the tippy top of the mountain, like Edmonton did last year, and then fall short and lose, I think that's the ultimate motivator, just like it motivated the Panthers 2 years ago when they lost to Vegas and then came back the next year and won. And again, when you're talking about hockey, it's puck luck. It's that little inch. It's that little extra edge. And I would put it in Edmonton's quarter. Not only do they get home ice, but you get the runner-up narrative from last year. So do I think Edmonton's going to run through the finals? No, obviously Florida's legit. They're as good as you can be. But I think if you were going to ask me who has that little maybe hidden motivation edge that isn't accounted for in the market, I maybe would put it on Edmonton's side of the ledger.
Oh, definitely. I think Edmonton's probably going to be the more, I mean, I hate to say more motivated because like everyone wants to win a championship. And even though Florida won last year, they still want to win the championship this year. And in fact, Matthew Tkachuk, a couple of nights ago after they won the Eastern Conference, beating the Carolina Hurricanes, he was like, yeah, a couple of years ago, we were excited. We were celebrating, but now it's all business. Like these dudes are locked in for the Florida Panthers. And think about the trades that they made at the deadline, getting Brad Marchand, like Seth Jones. Like they have a really, really talented team and they're hard-nosed and they're gritty, kind of steal your word. That's how Florida plays. But man, like just last night, to put a bow on what we saw in the Western Conference, Edmonton definitely was the best team in the Western Conference. I mean, LA actually gave them the biggest and toughest series. The first round where the Kings were up 2-0 and had a chance to go up 3-1, if not for giving up a goal with 28 seconds left that forced overtime. Not bitter about that one. Not bitter whatsoever. As somebody who bet the LA Kings, but I thought what was really interesting from last night's game on the Dallas side is that Jake Ottinger got pulled rather early in the game last night. In the first period, gave up 2 goals on just 2 shots, and after the game, Pete DeBoer defended pulling Jake Ottinger, and I actually agree with him. Like, dude, it's do or die, facing elimination. Like, we cannot fall down early, and they fell down early once again. Bang, bang, down 2-0 in the first period. Like, you had to get him out of there because it's like he clearly did not have it. I don't know if he was spooked after playing so well against Winnipeg. Just really just kind of came back down to earth against Edmonton, which is the worst team to do that because you know you're going to get peppered with shots with McDavid and Draisaitl and all those guys that they have out there. Like, the fact that he just benched his number 1 goalie who had been playing really well, I thought it was gutsy from Peter DeBoer. Now, it didn't work out. Like, DeSmith didn't really do anything, didn't do much better the way Edmonton was playing. But I would have done the same thing, honestly. Like, at 2-0, you got to try something. Otherwise, you're just going to watch your season go away. And even if you do change it, your season still goes away, as we saw last night. But I 100% agree with his decision to do that, even though Ottinger is like their number 1 and the guy that they've relied on all season long.
Yeah, that makes sense to me. I think the overall win or go home vibes causes desperation. And I think it's like maybe he'll look back on it and say, yeah, maybe I wish I'd give him a little more time. But also, if you believe that this is the right move, you need to switch something up. And again, like in baseball, like in basketball, I think in the NFL is the only real sport where the coaches, because they're calling the plays and they're so engaged in the players' headsets every play. You know, the other sports, like the coaches don't have a huge impact on the game other than, you know, what you said, pulling a goalie out, making a personnel change. That's really the only control that coaches of non-football, you know, sports have, you know, in the play-to-play, the game-to-game monotony. So it makes sense to me. The desperation obviously, you know, kind of won there.
It's funny because DeBoer didn't want to put the whole game on Ottinger because like he never wanted to do that. But he did say this, though. He said, quote, "The reality is, if you go back to last year's playoffs, he's lost 6 of 7 games to Edmonton." Like he's like, I'm not blaming him, but the reality is he never beats them.
Not blaming him.
Exactly. Like, I was like, I don't know how that one's going to play in the locker room. And maybe if Dallas were to get off to a slow start next season, maybe DeBoer's not going to be long for that job because we see in the NHL, they are quick to fire a coach. Yeah. And in the locker room, if you lose that locker room, like you're done. You're absolutely done. And he might have pissed off his number 1 goalie with that comment heading into the summer months there as they go into golf season down there in Dallas. So no more Stars. Rather unfortunate. Rip up the tickets. Stars to win the Cup. Some parlays we had the Stars with. It all goes out the window. So let's talk about what's going to happen starting Wednesday, game 1 of the Stanley Cup Final. We're looking at the betting market. You see Edmonton right now at BetMGM, a minus 130 favorite. The total sitting at 6. You can get plus 110 on the other side if you want to back the Florida Panthers. So that's the game 1 market, but big picture, coin flip market with the series price, maybe slight lean to Edmonton. Is that where you would lean? They have the home ice this year as opposed to last year. Florida was able to get that game 7 at home and they won it. Like now that home ice is north of the border, does Canada finally end the drought? And is it McJesus that gets it done in a couple of weeks?
Yeah, I think Edmonton minus 120 would be the bet. Again, and I'm not a hockey expert. I'm not going to break down the X's and O's or any of that stuff. Let's just look at the market. Tell me about
their fourth line.
The numbers. Yeah, that's not my cup of tea. You guys have fantastic hockey experts that you bring on, I'm sure, over the next couple of weeks to break that down. But let's just look at the market and the odds. Edmonton's a minus 130 favorite in game 1. That means it's fair to assume they will be at least that big of a favorite in a game 7 if it gets to that point. And just like we saw last year in a game 7 at home, minus 120 to win the series. That means if you have a minus 120 in your back pocket and it gets to a game 7, you're going to be on the right side of the ledger. You can come back on Florida, and you would expect it to be a bigger favorite than minus 120 heading to a game 7. That's just the way my brain kind of looks at a series bet. That's a 7-game series. Obviously, the series might not end in 7, but if it does get to that do or die scenario, I know I'm going to have Edmonton at minus 120, and the money line price is probably going to be minus 130 or likely higher than that as they do the zigzags, especially later on in the series. So I would say just based off of the market, yeah, Edmonton minus 120. If you think they're going to end it, I think that's a fair bet.
Do you think? I mean, I would guess the answer to this question is yes, but like this feels like a long series, right? Like 6 or 7. Like I'd be pretty surprised if one of these teams wins in 4 or 5. I think we're going 6 or 7. So we're like, I think you can maybe get a little bit fun with some of the series bets. Like if you like Edmonton, like I'm looking at it right now. Like if you see like Edmonton to win in 6, like I think that could be your path to victory. That's plus 450. Edmonton at 7 plus 425. Like that's kind of how I would be looking to play this series from a series price standpoint. Is like, hey, like bet it to go long and then pick whichever side that you like and get the big plus money payout. Because these two teams, like they have been running through the playoffs. And funny, like we might look back on this postseason and say, you know what, the teams that gave these teams the best run was LA for Edmonton, and it was actually Toronto for the Florida Panthers, the team that everybody wants to blow up, myself included. Toronto took Florida to 7. Nobody else has been able to touch them in the Eastern Conference. But I think this goes 7 because these two teams, they feel like they've been on this collision course, and I think we're finally going to get a really, really competitive Stanley Cup final.
Agreed. Also, the Conn Smythe market, we do this with the Super Bowl all the time. Now, to be fair, let's clarify. The Super Bowl MVP is the game, the Super Bowl MVP. Yep. So that's separate. Conn Smythe is the entire postseason, but I actually think that helps us in this scenario because how is McDavid not winning the entire postseason MVP if the Oilers win this series? He's even odds. Edmonton's minus 120 to win the series. A little bit of delta there.
Yeah, it feels 1-1 to me with me. You can make the case for Draisaitl because Draisaitl was awesome this year, but McDavid is the one, and I think for them to win, he's going to have to be the guy that plays well. And I think that's the path for the Edmonton Oilers.